As the US and China clashed in a trade war starting in 2018, the world watched anxiously. The two largest economies on the planet were no longer just competitors, they had become open adversaries, imposing tariffs and countermeasures that sent shockwaves through global markets. The world's supply chains and alliances trembled as businesses and governments scrambled to adapt to the new reality. Every container ship, every trade route, suddenly seemed vulnerable to disruption. For Japan, whose prosperity depended on both American security and Chinese trade, the stakes were existential. Japan's economic miracle had been built on open markets and stable alliances, but now both were under threat. Tokyo was forced into a high-wire act, side too closely with Washington and risk Chinese retaliation, which could devastate Japanese exports and investments in China, or lean toward Beijing and jeopardize its US alliance, the very foundation of its national security since World War II. The pressure was immense, and every diplomatic move was scrutinized by both superpowers. Japan's economic model, built on global supply chains, was suddenly at risk. As tariffs threatened to sever vital links, factories faced uncertainty, and Japanese companies worried about losing access to key markets and components. The US-China conflict wasn't just a distant storm, it was a crisis at Japan's doorstep, demanding a fundamental rethink of its foreign policy. Business leaders and politicians alike realized that old strategies might no longer work. Could Japan remain neutral, or would it be forced to choose sides in a new era of great power rivalry? The debate raged in government halls and on television screens, as experts weighed the risks and opportunities. The choices made in Tokyo during this period would shape its future for generations. Every policy decision, every alliance, would have long-lasting consequences for Japan's place in the world. For Japan, the trade war was the starting gun for a race to redefine its national strategy in a rapidly changing world. One where adaptability, resilience, and careful diplomacy would be more important than ever before. As the US retreated from global trade leadership, Japan and China saw a chance for rapprochement. In 2018, Prime Minister Abe's landmark visit to Beijing signaled a thaw, with both sides signing agreements and discussing joint infrastructure projects. The hope that Japan and China could anchor a new, rules-based Asian economic order, especially as the US imposed tariffs on Japanese goods. For Japan, closer ties with China offered a hedge against American unpredictability. For China, it was a way to weaken the US alliance system. This spirit of cooperation led to the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, a massive free trade pact excluding the US. The vision was of an integrated Asian market, powered by Chinese scale and Japanese technology. But this promising dawn would soon be overshadowed by hard geopolitical realities. The rapprochement was short-lived, as deeper tensions resurfaced. Just as economic cooperation between Japan and China seemed within reach, with both nations engaging in high-level talks and trade summits, underlying tensions simmered beneath the surface. Suddenly, China threatened to restrict exports of rare earth minerals, materials absolutely vital for Japan's advanced technology sector, from smartphones to electric vehicles and even defense systems. This move sent shockwaves through Japanese industry, which relies heavily on these resources to maintain its global edge. Memories of 2010 resurfaced when a maritime dispute led China to abruptly halt rare earth shipments to Japan. The result was immediate: panic buying, skyrocketing prices, and a scramble among Japanese companies to secure alternative supplies. The incident exposed just how vulnerable Japan was to supply chain disruptions. Fast forward to 2019 and Chinese state media openly discussed the possibility of weaponizing rare earth exports during the escalating trade war with the United States and its allies. This was a clear and deliberate warning to Tokyo, signaling that economic tools could be used as strategic weapons. At the same time, China increased its military presence near the disputed Senkaku Islands, conducting more frequent naval patrols and air incursions over the East China Sea. These actions heightened regional tensions and put Japan's security forces on high alert. These aggressive moves were intended to intimidate Japan and remind it of its economic dependence on China. Instead, they sparked widespread alarm among Japanese officials and citizens, highlighting the dangers of relying too heavily on a single, powerful neighbor. The once promising vision of partnership quickly faded, replaced by the stark reality of a powerful, assertive neighbor willing to use any means, economic or military, to gain leverage and influence. The shadow of the dragon grew longer over Japan, casting a chill across the nation and forcing leaders to confront a new era of uncertainty. Rather than succumbing to pressure, Japan began to rethink its strategic options, strengthening its defense posture and seeking new trade alliances to reduce its vulnerability to economic and military coercion. The era of benign cooperation had ended, giving way to a more cautious and competitive relationship, one defined by vigilance, resilience, and the search for new partners in an uncertain world. China's aggressive tactics triggered a dramatic shift in Japanese public opinion. Once pragmatic about China, the Japanese public now saw it as a primary security threat. Politicians responded, shelving talk of cooperation and advocating for reduced economic dependence on China. Debates about increasing defense spending and acquiring new military capabilities moved into the mainstream. Japan's pacifist stance began to shift toward proactive deterrence, reflecting a new national consensus. This transformation wasn't just about US pressure, it was a domestic response to Chinese assertiveness. The government concluded that the risks of aligning with China outweighed the rewards. The dream of an Asian-led economic order was shattered by the reality of hard power politics. Japan was ready to embrace its US alliance with renewed purpose. The stage was set for a decisive pivot. Ironically, Trump's America First policies also pushed Japan closer to the US. Initially, Trump's unpredictability and tariffs unsettled Tokyo, but it forced Japan to step up as a proactive partner. After the US left the TPP, Japan led the creation of the CPTPP, proving its commitment to the liberal order. Despite trade disputes, both countries shared deep concerns about China's rise. The personal rapport between Abe and Trump helped smooth tensions and kept the alliance strong. By challenging old certainties, Trump's presidency compelled Japan to prove its worth, deepening the partnership. Japan was no longer a passive ally but an active player. The US-Japan alliance emerged stronger and more balanced. Japan moved decisively to reinforce its alliance with the US across economics, technology, and defense. Tokyo promoted economic security, subsidizing companies to shift supply chains away from China. Japan joined the US in excluding Huawei from 5G networks, prioritizing security over economics. The two nations launched joint R&D in AI, quantum computing, and biotech to maintain a technological edge. Japan embarked on historic military modernization, acquiring advanced US weaponry, and converting ships for F-35B jets. Operational integration deepened, with more joint military exercises and a stronger Quad partnership. The Quad, now a leader-level summit, became central to the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. Through these efforts, Japan's pivot was complete. It was now an indispensable US ally. No longer a junior partner, Japan was a proactive architect of regional security. The alliance had entered a new era. In hindsight, China's carrot-and-stick approach to Japan was a strategic miscalculation. Economic incentives and military threats were meant to pull Japan closer, but instead triggered alarm and resistance. For Japan, China's actions signaled unreliability and danger, stoking nationalism and a desire for security. The US-Japan alliance, despite its frictions, was built on shared values and decades of cooperation. Beijing's pressure campaign only reminded Tokyo why the alliance mattered. For Japan, the choice was clear: security and autonomy over uncertain promises from an assertive neighbor. China's strategy backfired, turning Japan into a more determined US ally. The region's balance had shifted decisively. Japan's strategic pivot has dramatically redrawn East Asia's geopolitical landscape, altering the balance of power in ways that were unimaginable just a decade ago. The region is now defined by a complex and evolving web of alliances, with Japan emerging as a proactive anchor of a US-led coalition that seeks to maintain stability and deter aggression. Japan's leadership in the CPTPP, its active participation in the Quad, and its pursuit of new security partnerships have made it central to the vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific, where rules and norms are respected. Today, Asia is more starkly divided than ever before. On one side, a US-led bloc of democracies, and on the other, a China-Russia axis that challenges the existing order. The middle ground is rapidly shrinking, forcing nations across the region to make difficult choices about where their loyalties and interests lie. As military spending and the formation of new alliances accelerate, the risk of a regional arms race grows, raising tensions and uncertainty for the future. The Taiwan Strait has become a dangerous flashpoint, with Japan now openly linking its own security to the fate of Taiwan, signaling a new era of strategic clarity. Managing this increasingly confrontational dynamic without descending into open conflict is perhaps the greatest diplomatic and security challenge of our time. Japan's evolving story demonstrates that shared democratic values and collective security commitments can, at times, outweigh even the most lucrative economic incentives. The world now watches with anticipation as East Asia's new chessboard takes shape, with Japan standing at the forefront, shaping the region's uncertain future and redefining what alliances mean in the 21st century.